Hello, welcome to Winmore's Rough Cuts. Today, we got something special for you. A film debate, where we talk about anything related in the realm of film, technology, whatever. But today's topic, CGI. Do we love it, or do we hate it? Let's introduce the contestants. Contestant 1, Jermaine in this corner. He will be our anti-CGI party, and a lover of practical effects. And in this corner, Jeff, contestant 2, pro CGI. See how that goes. Alright, let's explain the rules. I, Dylan, am going to be the mediator. Totally unbiased, by the way. I'll be giving out points to each player depending on the quality of their viewpoint. We'll have up to 3 rounds to decide who is the winner. In each round, each player is going to get 1 minute to explain their viewpoint, and I, the mediator, will give a point depending on my personal opinion and which I think is the strongest. If one player gets 2 points within the first 2 rounds, they win the game. But if each player gets 1 point, it goes to sudden death, where each player will only get 30 seconds to describe their viewpoint as fast as possible. So, without further ado, Jeff, start us off for round 1.
Alright, so with the modern age of technology and so many advancements in the world of cinema and cinematic television, there has been so many advancements in CGI technology. You could argue and say that we're going through a sort of renaissance of CGI. Take, for example, James Cameron's Avatar, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the modern Star Trek movies, and even HBO's Game of Thrones. Those movies have revolutionized and even popularized the use of CGI, mainly because of how practical they are, but also on how useful they are when put into the right context. That's not to say that live action is any stranger to modern CGI either. Animated films have also been taken its use of CGI as well. You think about movies, say like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or even Looney Tunes Back in Action, and Space Jam is a bit debatable, but a lot of 90s kids seem to really grow up with it and like it. Heck, I mean, I still enjoy it too. You could say that there's been some good...
And that's our time, Jeff. Thank you. Alright, Jermaine. Counterpoint. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, since you brought up Marvel, I actually have a few points of Marvel. They have revolutionized the CGI setting and absolutely killed it. And though some of their films have poor CGI in it, for example, Black Panther, the cinematic fight between Black Panther and Killmonger was very iffy looking. Like, you could tell that it was just a room and they animated Black Panther and Killmonger. Instead, they could have at least had, the one-on-one fighting scenes that you see in most movies, like Keanu Reeves's one of Keanu Reeves' films. And
Alright, Jermaine, thank you for your time. Let me think about this. I see value in both points, but I think Jeff really brought up some interesting topics, especially with animated films, so I'll be rewarding Jeff the first point. Alright, people, it's time for round 2. Now, for this, we're going to give each player 2 minutes, get more time to get their viewpoints across, and it'll be the meat of their argument. So, get ready. We're going to start off with our contestant 1, Jermaine. Whenever you're ready, Jermaine.
okay, so I'm guessing you were in the CGI scene. You like that, right? But I'm one for practical, for puppets and built scenery and stuff like that. So, for example, Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars, or even the giant puppet from Force Awakens. You remember that? Where the scene where she goes and she finds BB-8 and she's talking to this big alien-looking monster. Well, he was a puppet, and I just think that gives it more of a lifelike type scenery type deal. Makes it look more realistic than CGI, because CGI you can really easily mess up.
All right, Jeff.
All that is very reasonable, and I will build on to what you're saying about the effects within Star Wars. Now, I will say that when it comes to CGI and Star Wars, a lot of people can agree that the prequel trilogy did get a little bit too carried away. There's a big point that I want to make upon this that I will rather wait until we get closer to the end of the debate. But what I will say is that you have to think about the bigger picture on here, in that because of CGI technology during that time, the late 90s into the 2000s, we're starting to becoming very up and end with moviegoers. They wanted to take advantage of that to bring more audiences in, because it was a shift of technology from when things were becoming practical and puppet-like into computer-generated imagery, and audiences at the time were still accepting it. That isn't to say that it's going to be the way how it is for the rest of the time, because we'll be looking at the prequel and even Star Wars in general many years from now and think that the special effects would be very crude. But you have to think about the way on how they were on, you could say, a budget at the time. Because sometimes sloppy CGI isn't always on fault with the filmmakers themselves. It's just that they needed to take better care with the way on how it's made. But usually in that kind of sense, it does help bring a little bit more life into the movements. Now, I'm going to go for example and say a good movie, say Pan's Labyrinth. Now, Guillermo del Toro, a revolutionary director, really good at his work. Within the balance of CGI and puppetry in Pan's Labyrinth, I think that he made a very good film based on the balancing use of technologies. And even Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings have actually gotten good with their technologies as well. Specifically.
And that's all our time, Jeff. Thank you for your argument. All right, let me think about this. I think both arguments are obviously valid, and I like that they both brought up this weird sense of CGI being mixed with actual live puppets. But I think I'm going to give this one to Jermaine. I liked his examples, especially with Force Awakens. It's very recent. I think, hopefully, that practical effects would exist within the same space with CGI. And if you know what that means, people, each player now has a point. Means we're going to sudden death. Now each player only gets 30 seconds to explain their final viewpoints and win me over. If both players are ready, let's start off with Jeff.
So, finishing this off, two prominent films, the 1933 version of King Kong and Peter Jackson's 2005 King Kong. You could tell that there's a lot of puppetry motion going in with the original King Kong. And even though CGI, you could tell that there's a character or creature that's not really there, it does have a more sense of realism when you compare it to stop motion puppetry. So, in a sense, just in terms of quality, you have to look for newer versions that have superior CGI.
All right, Jermaine.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Bring it.
Okay. I would like to bring up also two films, Batman vs. Superman and Shark Boy and Lava Girl. So, the travesty of Shark Boy and Lava Girl, the 3D CGI, it's absolutely awful. I mean, I know that they wanted to do like something different, but if they used, I think a few practical props would have carried those movies.
All right, Jermaine. Thank you for your time. All right, final arguments. Let me think. All right, I've got some time to stew over it. With Jeff's argument, I get the impression that CGI brings more realism and some impressive effects to it. But with Jermaine's argument, he brings in the fact of bad CGI and where it could be misused or kind of ruin the tone of a film. Whereas in practical effects, even if they are cheaper, they could potentially still have some sort of charm. So, with the arguments, I'm gonna have to give it to Jermaine. Alright folks, we got a winner. Let's give a round of applause for both our contestants. Very good arguments all around. And I hope you enjoyed our first episode of Winmore's Rough Cuts with our film debate. Any last words from either of our contestants?
Subscribe, like, follow, subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. Pretty much on everything.
Thank you so much for tuning in to watch this video. We really appreciate all your support.
And if you guys enjoyed this film debate and you want more like it, let us know in the comments. Until next time, cut.